Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. My name is Stephen D. Kelley. This is the Stephen D. Kelley Show, and we are Truth Cat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com, the one and only. It's Thursday night once again. It's 6:02. I could blame Jose for that. Yeah, I'll blame Jose for that. Why not? Yeah. Anyway, tonight is the 25th of May. It's 2023. Now, for those of you that don't know or may know or have gotten tired of me alluding to, my birthday's coming up in 3 days, 25th. So tonight will be sort of a birthday show. Not really. I mean, when I say a birthday show, it's like, what does that mean? I'll explain that. But anyway, as far as celebrations go or whatever, this tonight will be sort of like the official beginning of the celebration, because I do officially turn 65. I'm going to be old enough to get Social Security. That's right. I applied for my SSI. Answered all those silly questions. They say, you'll be getting a check now on the third Wednesday of every month. Like, oh, wonderful. I get to play that. I get to play that character. I need to cash my SSI check, please. That kind of thing. But so that's nice, because that'll help me, pay bills and stuff. I still want you guys to help me out economically, of course. Otherwise, it'll go quick. Pay for Medicaid and all that. Once you turn a certain age, I think you're going to buy drugs. Yeah, drugs. That's it. I need it for buying drugs. Now, so tonight I'm going to be doing kind of a reminiscence, because and when I say reminiscence, I think it's important stuff, because I was, quiet, guys. I was I was kind of thinking about a few things. And with respect to things that are happening out there, issues, meaning current events, particularly. I just covered Grace Little. I should have covered her sooner. She wouldn't be making some issues. Anyway, particularly what I'm talking about is the whole issue right now with the transgender thing. And, the Target selling the tuck swimsuits and the little pins, little satanic pins and things, promoting that whole agenda. And it is whatever, Pride Month, I think, or the Coming Out Month, or some nonsense, where this is kind of a big deal, at least from a PR standpoint. Now, I'm not really going to talk about the politics of all this and negative nature per se, but what I am going to talk about is my own personal experience, because of my brother and what he was involved in, what he went through, and what I observed firsthand. So if you read my book, and if you haven't, you should, of course, but if you read my book, you'll know that I am a twin. I'm an identical twin, and there was a time where the more of a masculine caricature I became, the more feminine he became, and I never really understood what that was all about, but I did understand energetically what was going on. But what's more importantly is I can tell you firsthand a lot of things in detail from my observation, and things I know to be true, psychologically, physiologically, etc., with the process, and what somebody goes through, and what they're thinking and what they're not thinking, and what's going on and what's not going on. But I also wanted to, in a broader context, I wanted to talk a little bit about our contribution. I want to look at my brother as this sort of a polar opposite, or if you will, counterbalance, and his contributions. Because when I think about things like, well, I guess one of the things that really got me into this rabbit hole of train of thinking is I was thinking about the guys with the money. I thought about Jeff Bezos in particular, mostly because he's been showing off his latest trophy wife. Now, if you've seen this woman, she appears to be Latin, which of course is the hallmark of beauty right now. It used to be, in the day, was the blondes were the considered the most attractive. And I think it was after so many Miss Americas with the women from Venezuela that right now the J-Los of the world and what have you, the Latin definitely seem to have the, the market cornered when it comes to that persona. And I'm certainly not one to argue, but he has this new woman, and she has let's just say she has quite a rack, and he displayed her with this ridiculous top that went down to her navel, I think, and this sort of thing. And I personally, of course, the woman is beautiful, and I think he's showing off, and he bought her a $5 million diamond ring, and I'm thinking, that's crazy. You could probably get a really nice diamond ring for $500,000. There's no need to spend $5 million. Hell, right? I mean, $500,000 ring is just as nice. Get a nice 5-carat. How big has it got to be? I mean, seriously. I mean, the boobs are big, but how big is the diamond got to be? But anyway, and I thought, well, okay, then there's Elon. He's got a lot of money. He's a different character. But then it struck me, as I was feeling jealous, I realized that their money and their businesses, the root of their wealth, came from their use of a stolen technology, that being high-speed internet encryption, which, of course, is my brother's idea. It was invented for the purposes of encrypting information being shared by doctors online so they would not violate laws of HIPAA. It had to be encrypted, so it had the maximum secrecy. Of course, obviously, this is something that is very desirable when you're selling product, or who knows, you're Amazon or eBay or you name it. Anyway, so the rest is history, but I realized, well, that's kind of interesting because, of course, I'm always measuring these things. I thought, let me think of the significance of this. The internet and what it has become is inherently evil. And let me explain why I think about this. Now, we'll get back into all this transgender stuff and what have you soon. But before that, I want to talk about something else, and that is, again, I'm 65, and I've seen a few things, and I remember when the internet doesn't exist, and I remember when it started, and I remember when I had to get a computer, and there were people that were using computers, and I had a word processor. I'm not going to get a damn computer. I can type my stuff and use this word processor just as well. And anyway, but I ended up doing it, and I ended up building my own web pages, and even though I had dial-up AOL, it still allowed you so much space that you could use to create web pages. Now, back in those days, there were some services that you could use to build your own web page. There was pretty much template stuff, just like they use nowadays, only they call it Word. Anyway, it's a thing everyone uses. But the point is that if you knew a little bit of HTML and you knew how to FTP the HTML up and down into your web page, you had a web page. And this is how we communicated. There were bulletin boards, there were emails, and there were web pages, and people linked each other up to their web pages. They published their emails. They sold product like that. This was all before MySpace, and this was all before Facebook or any of this. Now, sure, there weren't a lot of things going on. We didn't have the video, but then we didn't have the high-speed internet encryption, that thing that my brother came up with. But the point is we communicated, and we managed to get by. We had invented desktop publishing. Suddenly, we were able to print our ideas and share them with each other and put them out there, and with zero control or filtering or censorship. Zero. Now, of course, mostly because of Facebook, people are used to using a service. They use that service for all their communication. They completely forgot how to do these other things. So nobody has web pages. And I'll tell you something else. I'm pretty sure that all those people providing those email services, they're not providing that free space for building your own web page. But you know what they are providing? All kinds of propaganda and mind control nonsense and bullshit that doesn't belong there for a company that's supposed to be providing your email. It's gotten heinous. Look at Google. Google, of course, started out as an information service. But, here's the thing. Again, back in the day when we had our own web pages and we had our own links, and we would actually have a separate page on our web page list of pages, and one of them was a link page where you would have everybody's link on there. And sometimes on your link page, you might have a list of all kinds of different search engines. You probably don't even remember all the different search engines. I know I don't. But I'll tell you one thing. We didn't use Google. We used something else. We didn't use Yahoo. We used something else. But now you got one search engine. It's Google. You got a few others, DuckDuckGo, etc. But for the most part, it's Google. Google has become this monstrous giant. Kind of like back in the day, you used to have more than one program you could use for your word processing. Now you've got Microsoft. Well, the point is that we allowed that to happen. Okay? Now, I tried to encourage everybody that's in my group to go back and start creating web pages, because if you do that, doesn't matter what it is. If you put our content on the web page, if you put actual text on the web page, what's going to happen is those search engines like Google are going to pick up on that stuff, and they're going to have to display it when people do searches for keywords that happen to be on your web page. And there's no reason why somebody shouldn't be able to right now go do a search for Stephen E. Kelley or Occupy the Getty or anything, even the word Getty, and pull up nothing but pages from our people. Our message. There's plenty of us. There's no reason why we can't do that. Now, again, I don't want to focus on that, but I think if you were to come to me and ask me what we could do, that's certainly something we need to do, because I think that these services, these convenient services, have made us weak in that respect. And we need to find better ways. And what better way is it right now to avoid the censorship than to be your own source and to be your own platform and to be your own .com. Get your own web page out there instead of something that can be put behind a barrier, a wall. Well, you know what they call it. Anyway, shadow banning. There's no shadow banning when you own the thing. Now, of course, the search engines can work their hardest to make it difficult for your stuff to come up, but that's why, if there's so many of us, that's why if we link to each other like we used to do in the old days, it won't go away. They won't be able to hide it. So there is a way around this stuff. Now, I want to get back into this personal stuff and do some observations, because I was talking about this whole business with the transgender thing. Now, I know a lot of you guys, you want to hear about Getty. You want to hear about dealing with the cavers. And as I've talked about in the book, I've said, well, there's a lot of things I said, but there's a lot of things I didn't say. There's a lot of little details. I'm going to try to share some of these things with you tonight if you haven't heard some of these stories. But here's the thing. First of all, for whatever reason, my brother was going through this transition thing. He was becoming this feminine character, wearing dresses out to dinner and makeup and the whole thing, and using whatever estrogen, etc., surgeries, etc., to do this and that to achieve these feminization appearances. Now, of course, this is all in the context of, like, the Bud Light thing, where they got that idiot so-called influencer guy to use his transition to, and film it all on YouTube and get paid for that crap. And now he's out there acting as a spokesperson for Adidas or Nike women's wear, and the ill-fated thing with Budweiser, Bud Light. Now, Bud Light featured, if you don't know, this guy named Mulvaney, who's a transgender person, gone through a bunch of surgeries. I don't know how much surgery. I don't know. I'm assuming he doesn't have his package, but he may still have his package. Who knows? But as far as the facial peels, the Adam's apple thing, and the work on his jaw and his nose, etc., his lips, yeah, he's done all that. But here's the thing. Budweiser said that they're going to spend 3 times their normal advertising budget to try to recover their losses this summer. That's just this summer. This summer, during the peak of beer drinking season, they're going to triple their normal advertising budget. Now, bear in mind, we're talking about a company that spends millions and millions and millions of dollars for advertising, and they're going to triple that. That's a significant amount of money, all for one stupid, bonehead decision. Now, if you look back, you'll see that Budweiser has been doing the pride thing for some time. They've been doing the whole rainbow come out of the closet thing for some time, and nobody really talked about it. But for some reason, when they got this Mulvaney guy, whatever the hell his name was, or I'm sorry, female, she, he, all right, I'm sorry, but I'm going to go by what they were when they were born. He's still a guy. But here's the thing. Again, he's an influencer. And they thought this influencer was going to do this, and it cost them a huge amount of money, and now there's a backlash, and the backlash is getting serious. But why? What's going on with the backlash? Why is it so bad? What is it about this thing? So in order for me to understand this a little bit, it helps me to go back and look at my observations of my brother and what he was going. Now I'll say a few things about this whole transgender business. I mean, I could say where I think it starts and all that, but I'll kind of cut to some more important things. But the thing is that, and this is something that people really need to understand. First of all, in spite of what they're going to tell you, hang on. A cross-dresser, a transvestite, somebody who dresses up in women's clothing and puts on makeup, is not the same thing as the person who's going transgender. Obviously, the person who's going transgender is modifying their body and doing all this stuff and is doing everything they can to become as close as they can get to a biological female. Okay, so that is different than somebody that's temporarily dressing up. They're a man during the day, but they put on a dress and they do drag shows. The biggest thing to try to understand about the transgender person, or the person that has this issue, is that this is not about sex. This has nothing to do with them climaxing because of how they feel when they're doing this. It has nothing to do with that. That what they're trying to achieve is more of a attempt at achieving the feeling of being a biological female, not the sexual acts of a biological female, but being a biological female, living as a biological female, and living life and feeling as a biological female. And this is a human thing, not a sex thing. Now, obviously, in this situation, somebody like that, they do not have the abilities to do a lot of things, but I will just tell you from experience that a man that does this, goes through this process, is not necessarily homosexual, is doing it because they want to have this feeling, and is still desiring women. Now, of course, there's a lot of guys that do this that are homosexual that want to hopefully get a man, and they're not looking for a homosexual man. This is the thing, because a homosexual man is not attracted to that. So this is quite a problem. So this problem basically works the same for both of these types of transgender individuals. The one that still desires women is unable to be with a woman, and the one that desires a man that does not want to be with another man. because they want to be a biological woman and be with a man that wants a biological woman. So either way, it's unfulfilling. Again, like I said often, this is not necessarily a primary aspect of the desire to go through this process, because it's not. It's a identity thing, and an identity thing is not necessarily a sexual thing, a sexual desire. So the problem here, aside from the obvious psychological problems that are dealt with by somebody that has these ideas, is when homosexuality gets mixed in. So there are quite a few transgender people that will tell you that they are opposed to grooming. They think there's no place for this because this is a very personal experience. The people who are wanting to have the personal life experience of living as a female, they're doing that for themselves. They're not doing that for other people. So it's those people that would bring that into the public's eye and suggest that it's something other than it is. They're hijacking this. It's probably the best way to put it. So I would suggest that the rainbow community, the LGBT, etc. community, is hijacking the transgender issue and trying to turn it into a part of their own movement. And I obviously I don't think that's correct, but I don't think there's a lot of people that really understand this stuff. Now, as far as my brother was concerned, I'll just, like I said, I'll reiterate, I'm just going to say that I know that he was always interested in women. But I think that anything that was being done was done for others more as an exhibitionist, as if to suggest that once you have done these alterations, you're putting yourself on display, because that's really what it is. You're getting whatever you want to call it, the satisfaction of putting yourself on display and having people react to you in a way different than what you are historically used to. That has a lot to do with it. And when it comes to sex, receiving sex or performing sex in that scenario, again, that person is serving the other people. So it's not quite the same. Whereas a homosexual experience, purely homosexual thing, is going to be more narcissistic. It's all narcissistic, but when you're not working with functional, well, genitals, obviously people that go through the transition, the surgery, they're not working with functioning genitals, so they lose all that. So in other words, the benefit or the thing that they're trying to achieve is not what we're being led to believe. That's probably the best way I can put it. Now, here's the one thing I will say, though, with respect to this whole Getty business, and that is that when this was all going down, when we were dealing with the guy that was being recruited, Jim, the guy who was becoming the trust fund manager, whatever, my brother was going through the period where he was more inclined to be wearing women's clothing and looking very ambiguous. Now, to these people that were becoming exposed to him, they thought that was exactly what they would expect somebody of the type that they thought they were dealing with a psychic. Now, the reason why they thought that was because, of course, once I found out about what was going on with Jim, I talked to my brother, who told me all about Jim, and I debriefed him. I told him what to tell the other guy and told him what everything meant and what to do. So the whole time this was going on for months, my brother was relaying information that I was sending. And in the process, he was amazing these cavers who thought he was some sort of psychic and had all sorts of skills, etc. Now, when you look at him being all, well, ambiguous, that seemed to make to really go with it. And at the same time, during this recruitment process, they're filling his head full of smoke. They're telling him how wonderful he is. They're testing him. They're going through all kinds of sorts of things. And they're really making him think that he was really some big thing. And just one particular experience that he told me about. He was actually summoned to go to some motel or some hotel. I think it was like kind of a cheesy motel, one of these 60 type things with a pool in the center. And at this motel, there was a woman, I think at least one woman, an Asian woman, and she was supposedly some sort of psychic. And this was going to be some sort of comparison. They were going to try to, the idea was they thought that she could assess him or do some sort of scan or who knows what. But the point is that the whole time this was going on, they assumed that he had all this skill. And they kept trying to analyze it, quantify it. Now, at the same time this was going on, they pumped him up with all sorts of smoke. And this is, of course, how we got a lot of information, and a lot of the stuff we take for granted, I take for granted now because it was just like so much conversation back then. But one of the things they talked about was these bases, not just the base underground at the Getty. I mean, we didn't even think about that, but the other bases were the ones that were on the moon and the one that was on Mars. And the reason for this is because of the higher level of elitism associated with someone that was frequenting the base on the moon versus somebody that was frequenting the base under the Getty. So in other words, those people that were allowed to go to the moon thought they were extra elite, extra special. Now, if you remember from Andrew Basiago, those of you that do remember Andrew Basiago, he used to talk about going to these bases on the moon in it from a jump room. You know, the same one they have like in El Segundo that what's-his-face talks about in that group, 30 Seconds to Mars. He talks about meeting Obama and Obama's mother and how nice they were and how he went back in time and did all these things. But the thing is that the level of elitism, they look down on the ones that are only good enough to go underground at the Getty. And then, of course, there's the base on Mars. If you get to go to that one, you're going to look down on the ones that are only lucky enough to go to the base on the moon. Anyway, that kind of elitism certainly was enough to make me sick, and it was certainly enough to cement in my mind the idea that all of these people on the surface, the Bill Gateses of the world, the Soros, the whoever, these billionaires, the Bezos, etc., they're peons. They're nobody. They're nothing compared to what's underground below us. And yet those people have even more superior humans over them. And again, those people have even more superior humans over them. So I kind of like to cut to the chase, kill them all. Well, I didn't mean that. You know what I mean. Anyway, the point is that when you realize that, you realize there's elitism. You realize just how destructive elitism is and how this concept of being better than someone else and looking down on somebody else is so unnatural. And it's certainly a product of the enemy. So, in the grand scheme of things, though, when I look at this big picture, this big world that we're living in, this control structure that we're living in, the crap that they're trying to cram down our throats, it's the same thing. So I don't really want to go too much into it beyond that. From sharing stuff about the Getty, though, like I said, though, it mostly had to do with these interactions with my brother, who was, again, very ambiguous at the time. When they finally met me, as an afterthought, when we were at that restaurant, and they finally saw me, him, Jim, the guy that had been briefing him all this time, and he saw that I was a complete polar opposite of my brother. Nothing gay about me, no transition, nothing ambiguous, full beard, wearing black, slick back hair, all about guns, 6 children, nothing ambiguous there. You know, all that sort of thing. So in other words, the contrast between myself and my brother, it probably scared the shit out of him. Because here they were thinking that you had to be an Enoch to be a psychic, and you had to be an Enoch to be the one that they were looking for. Because, hey, that's what they're looking for, right? They want their little Antichrist or person to be kind of ambiguous, like Baphomet. And then what do they get? They get me and Rambo and all that stuff. And they're like, holy crap, this is not what we were expecting. This was not part of the plan. How did we miss this? What are we going to do? Here we are today. So, just to kind of tie it up, I'm just gonna say this: the stuff that we're getting hit with right now, this transgender nonsense, the pride nonsense, all that, and again, there's none of these things. There's nothing wrong with any of these things, but the grooming and the using all of the organs of propaganda to promote this, that's not okay. Now, I know right now our entire country is being portrayed as some kind of a bastion of this pride, if you will. And unfortunately, I think it's going hand in hand with the destruction of our economy, our international prestige, and our future. Very unfortunate stuff. And yet it's happening right in front of our faces at a very, very high speed. Now, these corporations seem to be the ones that are doing this. Now, I got to be honest with you. Once again, this corporate capitalist structure that we've got going on, I guess, making equity out of nothing is a great idea, but ultimately, when you look at a lot of the problems we're having today, it's not the government, it's these corporations. Now, I'll tell you, I did have one revelation here not too long ago, but you probably heard me. I like to talk about how I had this year where I helped to revolutionize the computer industry by putting out a whole bunch of parts, extra parts that allowed them to make all the machines to make these computer chips one year. And after that, our country basically made a whole bunch of money because suddenly computer chip production multiplied by a factor of several times. And this happened at the last quarter of the year, so of course people were very happy about that. But one of the companies that really was a beneficiary of all of this enhanced and expanded ability to produce these chips was Texas Instruments. Now, I know a lot of the weapons that I use or I made are still out there. M1 tanks, you name it. There's a lot of stuff that's still out there, missiles that still use those parts. Right? They probably aren't completely obsolete yet. Certainly, I know there's guys that are still using my lasers. If they work, I'm sure they're using them. But the point is that it turns out the chip-making sector of Raytheon, or not Raytheon, but Texas Instruments, became their defense sector, and it was purchased by Raytheon. Now, of course, Raytheon is making quite a few different missiles. They're kind of like Lockheed and what have you, Martin Marietta. Just another big conglomerate of companies. But the point is that what that means is that the machines that I helped make for this company are probably still out there, and they're probably still using them to make chips, and their know-how and the expertise, etc., whatever, it's still there, it's still functional, it's being used to make weapons of death. So there you go. I was a little disturbed to find out that the company that I at one time had such a hand in creating or boosting would become the future maker of these chips for Raytheon that would be used right now to bomb Russian soldiers. So, wow. Really? Anyway, again, that's one of these things I have to weigh. Now, when I look at my brother, I think, gosh, his contribution with the whole internet thing is pretty substantial. It's touched a lot of people, and in a way, I could say there's some negative aspects. So if I'm trying to look for some sort of a clear contrasting polarity, I'm thinking, wow, does the guy that's doing the transgender stuff, the narcissistic, self-centered, service to self thing, is that why? Would that suggest that this whole internet thing that we're dealing with right now that's controlling us is coming from that kind of an energy? And if so, what's the alternative? Well, what's my energy produced? Well, let's see, aside from the Occupy the Getty movement, which is hopefully a good thing, all these weapons and technology that I did way back when, and this whole killing technology stuff, that's pretty significant. The laser technology, the boosting of the computer technology. Ultimately, sure, that might have led to the internet indirectly, but at the same time, it's still killing people today. So it's difficult for me to suggest that from a polarity standpoint that either one of us have, done anything that would serve as a good example of a complete opposite, one being righteous and the other being not. I think in a way we're both kind of serving the same cause, but it's just a tough call, all right? I'm just going to leave it at, I'll just say the Lord works in mysterious ways. Like I said, though, these are my own observations, and what they mean, I don't know. But I think that these Getty guys, when they were dealing with him and he was, ambiguous, I think that this is what they were looking for. This is what they're intrigued with. This is what their future was that they wanted to push on the country in general. And the last thing they wanted was me. So I guess that's why Rambo said, wear black, grow your beard out, work out. And here I am feeling all old. Okay. All right, you guys, we still got it. Whoa, wow, it's almost 4. I tell you what, I'm going to just end it early tonight, okay, if you don't mind, because I'm going to go have a tri-tip. I think I'm going to have me a tri-tip. Hopefully a tri-tip will be good tonight. Who knows? Maybe I'll have a not prime rib, but ribeye. I know people go, you shouldn't eat meat. Come on now, I'm a savage. All right, everybody. Since I'm not going to take a break, sorry. I'm just going to remind you that I still do need your donations. I mean, yeah, I will be getting some SSI here coming up, but you know what's going to end up happening is it's going to go straight into feeding cats and stuff. No, I'll try to get my truck running, hopefully. So I do appreciate your donations, and I did receive a couple today, and I want to say thank you so much for that. I know one of them was because I did some work on somebody last night who was having pneumonia, and it's always great when you can heal pneumonia. It's a great, great thing. But I wasn't expecting to get a contribution as a result. But hey, I'm thankful. But like I said, though, I do need everything I can get from you guys. And again, there's a lot of people who are the most consistent, and I appreciate them. But I just hope that more people will find the ability and become flush enough to send a bit my way. Who knows? I mean, there could be a ton of people listening that I just don't know, but maybe someday in the future, I can send this to the cause or whatever, and you can continue doing this long after I'm gone. But in the meantime, if you want to help out, of course, you got to use the PayPal, please, and you need to say it's for friend or family. You need to find the button that does the friend or family thing, so I don't have to send it back to you. And you have to go to Stephen Kelley 714 at yahoo.com. Not Gmail, Yahoo. And again, if you want to talk to me or email me, please use the law17gun at AOL.com, LAW17GUN at AOL.com. And that's for getting the book, or if you need healing for you or your grandma or whoever, you need to write to me there, please. And also, let's see what else. Oh, yeah, the Jedi. If you want to become a Jedi and learn how to do that, if you haven't learned about it, that's a good place to start. Send me an email and tell me you're interested. And also, most important, you need to join the Telegram group. You need to join Telegram, and of course, that's because that's all we got. And the Telegram is the group in Telegram is Occupy the Getty /Stephen D. Kelley. If you type that in, you should find me real easy and join. Okay, or maybe whatever you're listening to, there'll be a link underneath down here. I'm assuming you're listening to this video or this broadcast on someone else's service, not mine, because I don't have any. What else? That's about it, really. All right. Again, I want to thank you all for being here. If you haven't joined my Telegram group, hurry up and do it. And it's too late if your birthday cards to me haven't arrived yet. Oh well. Let's see what else. Again, you can donate, and let's see what else. That's about it. Okay. I hope I see you guys in my group. Oh yeah, I do have a web page now, and that basically is just a little thing that helps you link up to me. But the web page is StephenDKelley.com. How about that, huh? Just go there. It's all there. We'll have other web pages coming, but right now, StephenDKelley.com is there. Oh, yeah, and we're going to be trying to be hustling some T-shirts and stuff here pretty soon. I mean, real time. I'm not trying to make money, but what I want to do is raise awareness, so I got to put a little more effort into trying to do that professionally. All right, so I'll keep you posted on that. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say thank you for joining me tonight, and I hope that you join me next week. And like I said, I hope you see me in the group here real soon. But with that, I'm going to let you go. And once again, it's still May 25th, 2023. It's now 6:45 p.m. Wow, that's pretty early, but that's okay. My name is Stephen D. Kelley. This is Stephen D. Kelley Show, and we are Truth Cat Radio. www.truthcatradio.com. My sign-off words are, first of all, well, thank you for being here, those of you, all of you guys, okay? Netherlands in the house, hey. All right, you guys, I'll see you in the group. Good night. God bless. Adios. And goodbye.